let's dig in there with, like, around the burnout. Like, what specifically, like, what was that moment? Was like, I don't want to do this anymore, and like, talk me through like your mindset and again with this shift to where you are now.
Yeah, so I want to say something too. I struggle with depression and anxiety. I was diagnosed with depression when I was 30, and it was a relief in some ways because I understood I was seeing the symptoms in myself. So when I got diagnosed, it was a relief. So anyway, at that time, my mental health was not doing well. I was drinking more than I ever had in my life. So not only was it a burnout from my work and my business, there was also this storm happening inside of me with my own mental health and my drinking and everything. It's like everything created this big ball of like, I'm doing this with my hands because it was almost a vibe itself, right, in my house because we're all working from home, and it just became, I call it like a cauldron of trauma. Like, just think about the witches, like this.
Yeah, you stirring up the brew.
Stirring up every day, talking to people about trauma, living in my own shit. And when I went to the hospital, my organs were shutting down, right? That's what my drinking left me. My organs were shutting down. And I was in the ICU, and the nurse looked at me like, you're too young to be here. Like, why are you here? And I believe that I was having a spiritual experience. And what I received from that was, you got to figure out how to shift the business. You can't take on all of this trauma every day. So what I decided in my business was, instead of doing one-to-one, I would go one-to-many. So if I'm seeing one person for 1 hour, I'll see 10 people in 1 hour. I'll see 100 people in 1 hour. So I still get to make the impact in my community. I still get to talk to people about healing. But for that 1 hour, now I have the rest of those hours back to myself to focus on my own healing. So that's why I turned my business from one-to-one psychotherapy into public speaking, workshops, trainings, and that. So I shifted the model of
almost like scaling, right? Like
scaling.
Instead of just being one-to-one, like, being able to reach more in a more efficient manner.
Absolutely.
To go back a little bit, you mentioned like the drinking was kind of helped or contributed to that burnout, right? There's obviously other factors there, but I wanted to drill in on that because that's something I think a lot of people don't really identify could be part of issues that they may be dealing with. Could you talk me through like what was your mindset around that? Because I know that's like a common thing. We drink, right? We go out, everything is like, you had a good week, you have a drink. Got a bad week, you have a drink, right? You go to Cincy area, you go to a wedding, everything is revolved around having a drink. So what was that like for you to quit?
To quit, it was a shift, like this internal, like jarring shift, because when I stopped drinking, I realized how much of my life was centered around drinking, right? I realized how much of my friendships were centered around drinking. I realized how much of my activities were centered around drinking. So like my first sober week, I ain't had nobody to talk to. I had nothing to do. I had nowhere to go because everything had been centered around drinking. So if you make the choice to stop drinking, you got to understand it's a lifestyle shift. It's not just the choice to stop drinking. The same things won't interest you anymore. So what I had to do when I stopped drinking was, what do I even like to do?
Yeah.
What do I enjoy at 30 something? It was a whole exploration that I had to do for that first year of being sober. Of like, before that,
almost like relearning yourself.
Relearning myself. Before that point, I've been drinking since college, right? So we party and we happy hour and we doing all them things. Now I can't do them things. What do I even like to do?
From like how did that feel? Like knowing that your lifestyle is changing because of that, and like you said, you kind of highlighted your friends. You're not maybe hanging out with the same people, or you're not doing some of the same things. Like mentally, like what was that like? Because I've heard people just say it's not fun. It's like I don't know what to do now. Like how did you kind of get through that on your own?
Well, to be honest, that's the reason why a lot of people go back into whatever substance it is, because it's not just the substance, it's the life that you build around it. So I felt alone. I don't really get lonely because I've been weird all my life, so I'm used to being alone. So I didn't get lonely, but I felt even more alone, and I felt left out. Like I had crazy FOMO because I'm watching all of these people at
social media.
That would be so fun. But then I tried to go, and I'm like, wow, watching drunk people get drunk is not fun. Like, this is not, and I know that used to be me, so I'm never in a judgmental
100%.
place. I'm never in a judgmental place, but I'm also like, I'm just not interested in that energy anymore. So the first year I was alone, and I was kind of confused about what it is that I like. And I remember my mom saying to me, like, I wish you had more fun in your life. And I was like, I still don't know what fun is for me at this age. Being a sober person, it looks completely different than it did a couple months ago.
Yeah. And so like that's a good point. One of the things that like we talk about here on the Habitual Thinker is like creating habits, right? And then also identifying good habits and bad habits. The like around drinking, like I don't think we look at that as being a bad habit because of the stigma that it has. Well, the stigma it doesn't have a bad stigma in our society. You know, it seems like you understood that was something that was kind of detrimental for you. How did you come to that realization? Besides just obviously, you know, you're in the ICU, but how did you come to that realization? Like, I got to change this if I want something else in my life.
I'm a very spiritual person, and my spiritual guides, they get a little bit aggressive when I don't listen. So I feel like that trip to the ICU was kind of like, and I remember this conversation, and I don't know if it really happened or if it didn't, but I remember my guides being like, yo, you got two options. You can continue to live the life the way you were, or you can create something different, but the alcohol cannot come with you. And my therapist said that to me like 10 times, and she said it, and I was like, okay, girl. But in that moment, the alcohol cannot.
She's been saying that for a while.
Oh, yeah. Really? I have been talking about stop drinking for a long time.
How long?
5-10 years.
5-10. Wow.
Yeah, because what people don't understand about depression is that something about drinking, you drink and it stops, the world shifts a little bit. It makes it more livable, right? So in my depressive mind, the drinking is self-medication. Alcohol is self-medication. So it was my medication. So I was taking it all the time. So it had been years of me talking to people like, I really want to stop. And so yeah, in that moment, I heard my therapist's voice of like, the alcohol can't come with you. And I had already talked about just building all these beautiful things. And she'd be like, yo, but you show up drunk or hungover, you're going to mess it up for yourself. It can't come with you. So in that moment in the ICU, I understood. And I would never drink.
That was like the moment that was like, okay,
I would never drink
I
again.
get it.
And then my guides, they real tricky. They sent a nurse to me to say, because when I went in for physical stuff, right? I didn't really share with them that this part of this was my drinking, but there was one nurse that was like, you drink? I'm like, kind of. A little bit. Every day, a little bit. And she said to me, you can never drink again. And she looked me dead in my face and said it. And I was kind of like, okay. And I understood that to be my guides being like, you don't have an option where you get to go back into the world and drink a little bit. You can never drink again.
Yeah.
So once I understood that in my mind and body and spirit, I would play with my guides. I was like, all right, cool. So when I came home, I remember throwing away bottles. You know, I got rid of all my shot glasses. Because I used to collect shot glasses from everywhere I traveled. Shot glasses, wine glasses, everything. My whole thing was real empty. My kitchen was empty. But I just understood it as a part of my evolution. If you really want to be on the TED Talk stage, if you really want, like my goal is to get to Netflix. I know Oprah not doing stuff no more, but I want to get to Oprah somehow. I can't be hungover for that. I can't be drunk for that. So it was a real like switch went off in my head of like, no more.
Yeah. I and the reason I asked like how long you've been talking about, because like, you know, for one, I think I know in our society, we know it's a problem. We know it's tough for people. That's why they have rehab. It's tough for people to quit.
Right.
So this wasn't like an overnight thing. This has been like almost 10-year journey of you in your mind saying, I know I don't want this anymore. I just got to figure out how I'm going to do it.
I didn't know how.
And in that moment, you just went cold turkey?
Yeah, I went cold turkey. And I kind of used the time in the hospital as a detox, right? So when I was in the ICU, they were giving me a lot of fluids, and it was, I just can't explain this hospital experience. It was such a spiritual experience, but I used that 5 days as the detox. And when I left, it was like no more. So it was cold turkey, never went back. Yeah. No urges.
So you didn't deal with like any withdrawals, like no FOMO. It was just like, that's it.
It was it. That was it. And what I wanted to tell whoever's watching this is once you got to make the mindset shift before you shift your behavior. Behaviors are symptoms.
They follow the CPU.
Right. The behaviors are symptoms of your mind. So if you want to stop doing something or start doing something, you got to change your mind first. So once my body was on board, once I had my detox, once all of that was on board, no urges, nothing, never. I think one time I ordered a mocktail. It got to me. I confirmed with her that it wasn't that it was a mocktail, and it wasn't. It had alcohol in it, and I felt this whole thing in my body system of like, it was a complete thing. Like, no, I don't want it nowhere near me. I don't want to smell it. Now, other people doing it, no judgment. Do what you got to do. But for me, never again.
Yeah. So that's powerful. I think a lot of people maybe might watch this, or just people in general, they may have a lot of those same feelings. A lot of times people don't talk about it, or they just don't feel like there's a path out. Like, you know, we've talked before, like same with me. You know, when I saw you kind of talk about, you know, you're going that route, that was just another affirmation for me. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm deaf. Because I was, in my mind, I knew this wasn't something I wanted to keep doing, right? I never saw this in my family, my immediate family. My parents didn't indulge or anything like that. So I knew at some point I wanted to, I don't need this anymore. Right. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. But similar to you, like I changed my mind around it. I was like, I'm going to do it. And then literally I prayed on it. You know, I'm Muslim, so, you know, we pray. Anything that in Islam, anything that we want, you know, we got to work hard at it, but you also pray. Right. And one night I was like, I'll never touch it again. And I just like that, I never heard the urge. Like I can't even, I don't even want to be around it.
And that's when it's a spiritual decision, when your mindset is already set, it's a different journey than when you're just trying to change your behavior. Yeah. So that's a huge piece. And talked about your family too. I want to bring that up. I got alcoholism on both sides of my family. And, you know, for a lot of, and I speak to Black people, for Black people, you know, we talk about mental health, and I ask people if they have a history of mental health in their family. They'll say no. That simply means there were no diagnosis. If you have alcoholism or alcoholics in your family, that is an indication that there is mental health in your family. So we look at these behaviors and then normalize. You go to any event, anything, then we come out the shower, y'all drinking. The party, we drink it. The Christmas, we drink it. All the holidays, we drink it.
Quinceañera.
The 1 year, why y'all drinking at the 1 year old baby party? What's going on? And I'm not, you know, I'm Caribbean too, so I'm not, I'm not knocking on this. I'm just talking about the culture of drinking that is so prevalent and normal that you have to understand that if you make a choice, people are going to be like, oh, you don't drink? What's up with that? I remember the first time I went out with a friend, and I just ordered water. She was like, no, you're not going to drink. What's up with that? People going to be asking you why you're not drinking. And that's another piece of it, of being strong in your choice. Because people might even get to making fun of you for not drinking. Yeah. So it's being real clear about your why, being real clear about what you want to do, and then deciding how you're going to navigate those spaces. So I'll have like a cup with something in it, just so nobody don't ask me no questions.
A little seltzer water on the rocks. A little seltzer water neat.
Make myself blend in. And then too, I know when it's time to go. When the first person fall or start slurring, then I'm like, all right, that's, you know, I've had enough outside time for today.
Yeah. And like, that's when you said, like, people may, you know, may look at you certain why you're not drinking. Somebody said it, like, it's the only drug that people question why you're not taking it. And I think that is probably one of the biggest reasons why I think it's so dangerous, because it doesn't have the stigma. For one, we don't call it a drug. Right. We don't call it a drug. Right. It is a drug, right? It is. Like if we were sitting here, it's like, hey, you know, let's go have a drink out of it. Oh, cool. Like, hey, you want to go do some crack? Like, what? Right? Like, I do believe that's one of the pros that people look at when it comes to alcohol, is that I don't have social anxiety. I'm more social, because you kind of lose some of those, you know, that nervousness. Yep. But I would argue it's a lie, because that's just the alcohol. Right. Without it, that's who you really are. Right. And then if the whole time you're not working on maybe being a better networker by yourself, you're not gaining any skill sets. And when you take the alcohol away, then you're like,
right. And I do this thing where I allow myself to be awkward, because when I'm not drinking, I'm aware. That's another thing. Awareness, memory. I'm sorry.
Memories.
I remember things. I know what I said. So say that 2.5 years ago. I don't know what that. People say, Jelan, you said that. I said that.
Like, what?
I said that.
How many drinks?
Right. What did I? So just the awareness, just understanding where I am, allowing myself to be awkward, allowing the discomfort, right? Because we drink because we don't want to be uncomfortable. Life is uncomfortable. Being human is uncomfortable.
Facts.
So it's like just leaning into those moments of, I might say something awkward. I might say something weird. That's cool because I'm human. We supposed to do that.
And being uncomfortable and uncomfortable spaces where you experience growth.
Right.
You don't experience growth from like what you're used to, right?
Right.
I want to go back on what you said about not just the personality, but like being aware. Like for me personally, I feel like I'm more I'm living in the moment more.
Yeah.
Like I'm actually present. Like you could be there, but like mentally, are you there? Right. The next day, you might be at your kid's game, but you're just like nursing. Like you're kind of trying to stay awake, or your head is pounding. Right. Like now I'm living in like the moment and not worrying about how I'm feeling from what I did last night.
Yeah. And I talk a lot about mindfulness. I have mindfulness training and I do mindfulness workshops. And being present in the moment is, see, I can go off on one of my speeches.
Go ahead.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. But what I will say is that when we are drinking alcohol, we are seeking to leave the moment. And the present moment really is the only moment that exists.
Exactly.
Right? So the way I say it is, if you are in the past already happened, the future hasn't happened yet. If you're not in the present moment, you're living in your imagination. So I think about how present I'm able to be without the alcohol. And it's a much different experience. It's a much different human experience that I'm having. And another piece I want to bring up is from the spiritual aspect of it. They call alcohol spirits. And there's a belief in some spiritual communities that when you black out, right? You think about blacking out where your body's still functioning, but you don't remember any of it. It's believed that an entity will take over your body because you leave in your body unattended. And I can tell you about all the times where physically I was there. I don't remember none of it. I'm watching myself on camera. So I know I was there. I know I was speaking. And it just makes me think about entities that I've allowed to kind of take the driver's wheel of this physical body, that it terrifies me now. So I just had to bring that up because when you black out, who's driving? Something is driving.
Yeah. No, that's a powerful point there. And I'm not totally in disbelief of that because, as a Muslim, we believe in the unseen and, the jinn, right? If you've heard of that before. So you're probably right. Like that's a time when you again, like you said, you're not remembering what you're doing, what you're saying. You were there, you saw it on camera.
Right.
But who was driving the ship at that moment?
Scary stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my nights where I was, because the night used to get real scary and active for me. But I remember I woke up and I felt like something like jarred me out of my sleep. And it felt like it was because something was trying to enter my body, and the energy that woke me up out of my sleep had my dad's face. And I later come to believe that was my grandfather, like waking me up, like it's trying to get you, it's trying to get inside of your body. But there were so many experiences like that, and I won't go too far into that, but it's important to talk about the spiritual implications too of leaving your body unattended, and how many horrible things happen to people when their bodies are unattended. So it's just another reason to just have the awareness of it's poison. It's poison.
Yeah. I mean, I think the thing is, I think people know, but we don't like to talk about it because then maybe it may make us say, well, maybe we shouldn't do this. And again, there's no judgment to anybody that's indulges, but it's just more for the information. But it is like, I think it's like the fourth leading killer right under like tobacco, right?
There.
And I also think about like, there's a lot of immeasurable unknowns around not it being a direct killer, but like being an indirect. Because if you think about, what you're doing, if you're out drinking, you're typically eating bad food, right? Like, so then you also got those other things that are playing on your health. I just think there's a lot of factors that we don't think about. And for me, I always knew it was stuff there, but I just started actually doing research because I just wanted to learn.
Yeah.
Right? It's linked to like 4 different cancers. There's so many just from a health standpoint.
Right.
Was there any other things that, you know, you identified that like now that we're kind of like out of it, that you say, wow, like I didn't even realize I was kind of putting myself.
Mental health. Right? I'm still depressed. I still have depression. I still have anxiety, but I ain't been inside them hells I used to go inside of with my depression. Like my depression was real, real dark, and I would drink because of the darkness, but the drinking was bringing forth the darkness. It's this loop.
It's like a cycle.
It's a loop. It just drags you in. So yes, your mental health, and then if you're on any medications too, you got to think about how the alcohol is interacting with those medications. So from a mental health standpoint, absolutely be very cautious about what you're feeding to that mental health diagnosis, because, you know, it exacerbates whatever's already going on with you. And I know in the moment it might take some of the pain away, but long term it exacerbates that darkness if you do struggle with depression.
Yeah. And we'll kind of dive off of this topic, but just one last thing. Any advice that you may want to give to anybody you think that can, you know, benefit from it? Any advice around if you're looking to like kind of either curb it or get rid of it altogether, like maybe some steps or some tips and tricks that you would give to anybody?
Well, one step I would say is definitely, if you don't have a therapist, get one. I had a therapist previously. In the last 4 years, I have a different therapist, and she has credentialing around substance abuse. So that's why I chose to work with her. So definitely, if you're looking for a therapist, Psychology Today, put in your insurance information, and it's almost like a Facebook of therapist where you get to see the person's face, read a blurb about them, and see what they're talking about. But I would definitely say get a therapist to help you. And also, you would have to start paying attention to how much the alcohol is in your life, what kind of activities you have with that. So you have to try some new things outside of the alcohol before you get started. Like if you're going to do it cold turkey, before you get started, go try some things out. Go try some yoga. Go try some meditation. Go try photography, whatever it is. But you'll need some new skills. You'll need some new hobbies
To replace.
to replace it. Because in my field, we say you don't take nothing away without putting something back in. So if you're going to, you know, release the alcohol from your life, go try out some new things to put in your life. And a great place to start with that is hobbies that you had as a kid. A lot of the hobbies that we had as a kid, we stopped doing because we wanted to be productive to make money. Whatever you was doing in your room when you were 5 years old that you love to do, start to do that.
Awesome. Great advice. So the pivot here.